I know that the very popular statistic that women make 77 cents to every dollar that men make is one that has been debunked in a lot of situations. I have seen those posts and those papers. They're very interesting.
It's been debunked in a lot of situations? In which situations has it not been debunked? Because unless there are situations you can point to wherein women actually do make 77 cents to a man's dollar, then it hasn't just been debunked in a lot of situations, it's been debunked in all of them. Here we go.
That doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't something that resembles a wage gap that still exists.
Yeah, I think that something is called bullshit. Also, what do you mean still exists? Because, and correct me if I'm wrong, that sounds like you're implying that it used to be the case. That there was, at one time, the claimed 23% wage gap. If that is what you would have me believe, I'm gonna need a citation.
Because a lot of the support for the disappearance, the claimed disappearance of the wage gap.
I don't know of anyone who's arguing that it's disappeared. I do, however, know a bunch of people who think it never existed. The claim that there is, or at least was, a wage gap is used as a sort of proof that women are, or at least have been, a disadvantaged demographic. Thing is, when there actually is a demographic that you can get away with paying less money for the same work, like, say, illegal immigrants, those people get hired so much that a non-trivial section of people who get paid more for the same labor can't find work. So when was that? At what point were women getting hired to the detriment of men's employment because employers saw a demographic that they could get away with paying less? When was that exactly?
Is that a man and a woman who both have been working for the same amount of time, have the same education, and have the same responsibilities make essentially the same amount of money. And that situation is one that, in reality, as it turns out, is very hard to come by. That for all kinds of reasons, it is unlikely that, say, a man and a woman who are the same age will have the same responsibility, the same background, the same education, and that there are all kinds of cultural, societal factors that keep that from being the case, and so it can make something that resembles a wage gap.
Oh really? What are those factors?
So there are some statistics about, after 16 years, 2 MBA graduates, 1 male and 1 female who were classmates, if the woman, say, takes time off to have a child, that can contribute to something like a 55% wage gap later in their careers. So that is the kind of thing that I'm talking about when I say that the wage gap is real.
The respective amount of work that men and women do? Those are the factors? Because if women aren't making less money for the same work, but rather making less money for less work, don't you think that would be more accurately called an earnings gap?
And if you want to know more about it, I wrote a long thing. We'll put a link to it in the doobly-doo. It does have research. There are sources. So if you want to take a look at the numbers, please do. It's all there.
I will also be linking to that article because it is quite telling. Mike quotes economist Claudia Golden as saying, quote, "The gender gap in pay would be considerably reduced and might vanish altogether if firms did not have an incentive to disproportionately reward individuals who labored long hours and worked particular hours." And end quote. And Mr. Rignetta builds on this by saying, quote, "It might sound weird to gripe that harder working people get ahead, but the problem is not the people so much as the context, social and professional, which allows certain people to work harder than others. For example, 15 years after graduation, these factors can contribute to upwards of a 55% wage gap between male and female former classmates. So, while men and women who have the same job and experience might make the same amount of money, there are many factors which will keep that man and that woman from having the same job," unquote. So, Mike, out of the myriad of factors that allow certain people to work harder than others, the one that you're going to show me is the personal choice that these women are making in regard to their careers. If some people are making less money than others because they're focusing on their personal lives while others focus on their careers, how is that a problem? And if it is a problem, how do we solve it? Just make one standard wage for everyone in the same line of work? I mean, honestly, it sounds to me like you're making the fact that women can't have their cake and eat it too sound like some kind of injustice.
Relatedly, asking for sources does not make you a bad person. That is not a thing I mean to imply. Rather, I think that a lot of times in a lot of these conversations, there can be an over-reliance on statistics, where they don't really get to the heart of some matters. There are some problems that statistics either don't describe or don't describe fully, because a lot of times we're talking about how people feel or how things seem.
No, feminists are talking about the way they feel or the way things seem subjectively when everyone else is discussing objective reality. That whole fucker right in the pussy controversy was one side saying that it wasn't harassment and the other side saying that it was harassment on the grounds that the reporter felt harassed. Right now there's a case where Steph Guthrie is charging a guy with harassing her on Twitter, and one side is people saying that he didn't harass her in any way, and the other side is people saying that if she felt harassed, then she was. Your subjective experiences might be valuable to each other, but the rest of us really don't give a fuck about them because we're discussing facts, not feelings.
And these are very subjective problems. They are based in people's subjectivity.
Oh shit.
And also, I think that there is a tendency for people to expect that the other side of an argument educate them about their position when ideally we are aware of the premises and the foundations of the positions that run counter to ours.
No, ideally, if someone makes a claim, they can back it up. The burden of proof is not on the skeptic.
The frustration comes, I think, from the fact that a lot of times asking for research or sources feels like a diversionary tactic.
Well, there's that F word again.
That we're no longer talking or arguing about the thing that we're arguing about. We're now talking about gathering sources, which, you know, when these arguments happen on the internet, whether or not it's on YouTube or on Tumblr or on Reddit, you know, it's very much an in-the-moment kind of thing.
Yes, when social justice warriors say stuff, they're just saying something that fits their narrative. They don't expect to have to back up their claim, and they don't care if what they're saying in this moment directly contradicts what they said in the last one. This is why there are so many people who take such delight in dismantling your bogus claims.
And so, from my perspective, I think one of the better things to do is to say, oh, I'm unfamiliar with this, I haven't formed an opinion on it, I'm gonna have to go do some research. If there are things that you think I should see that are important for me to know how to argue with this, then I want to know about them, can you tell me about them? But I think it's maybe disingenuous, I don't know, to expect that that the other side of an argument, someone who counters your position, is going to also teach you about their position.
No, asking someone to back up their claims is perfectly reasonable because people talk a lot of shit online. The people who get indignant about having to meet the burden of proof are always full of shit.
I don't know how other people feel about that, but I feel pretty strongly.
I don't care how you feel about it, Mike. The burden of proof is on the one making the claim, especially on the internet, where everybody talks shit.
And really, I think this is also related to Lewis's law, and this is something that I really should have predicted, and I'm very upset with myself that I didn't. That when I think we talk about Lewis's law being that comments on articles or things about feminism justify feminism, from my perspective, what that doesn't mean is that anyone who disagrees is automatically wrong. I think really what it means is that there tend to be comments which show attitudes that are indicative of the kinds of stuff that feminism is trying to address. These are comments like, get back in the kitchen, that's just the way things are, you know, women don't have it so bad.
The crux of the disagreement between feminists and anti-feminists is precisely that last one. We are saying that women do not have it as bad as feminists say they do. So if I justify feminism by holding the belief that feminism's main premise is incorrect, what could I possibly be other than wrong?
But I think that there are a lot of really fair criticisms of feminism. There are criticisms of feminism that I have, and I think that those are things like feminism is not inclusive enough. Feminism seems to lack consistency, and this is both confusing and unpleasant. There are legions of people on Tumblr who appear to be using feminism as a bludgeon. I think that all of these things are very, very fair criticisms of feminism, ways that you can disagree with it, where you are not somehow proving or reinforcing the set of attitudes that feminism as a methodology is trying to address.
Okay. today? Well, one major criticism of feminism that I have is that feminists use thug tactics to shut down people who disagree with them.
We can see through your disguise. MRAs, now they rise. We can.
So this is a new thing in Canada. We've got lots and lots of services which are focused on women.
Used to be called,
Sir, stand at the back.
what is now
Oh,
called
we
day
registered.
rape.
That's
Used to be
fine.
just called
But
exciting.
right now, there's a temporary delay. Okay? Trying to get sorted out.
He also, one of his famous quotes, he called date rape exciting, which is just horrible and misogynistic. There's nothing exciting or fun about rape. Rape is horrible, and we don't tolerate that sort of thought at U of T. Okay. I came as part of my women's studies.
We're not super interested in talking to you, first of all, but basically we're here to shut down an event that is promoting the patriarchy.
You're doing it really well. Good job.
Very frustrated. I was studying all today and I took time out of my studies to come here.
Would you like to ask him why he's here?
I'm not sufficiently convinced that I'll receive an answer that isn't what I've presented.
Two of my friends committed suicide and I want the peace of understanding why that happened.
Wow. When did this happen?
It happened about 2 years ago. It was one after the other like that.
Did you expect to get some addressing of suicide issue at the talk here?
Yes, I did.
What I have to ask on that, and I'll ask you, is why this space to talk about that? Feminism, for example, offers lots of spaces to talk about mental health issues, talk about depression, both in men, women, and people who don't identify within the binary.
I think everybody's voice should be heard. I wondered why the security was trying to keep me back, and I think it's for my own safety.
Did the same thing that feminists were doing of books by male authors, a very close read of their language. And that's where we came up with this repetitive pattern that men were portrayed as inadequate or evil or honorary women. And honorary women really meant that they were male feminists and shared the concept of the patriarchy and the rest of this. So,
but what about the longevity gap between men and women? Where's the research on this? That's about as existential a problem as you can get, life and death.
Okay, you know, it's the signature of a totalitarian ideology to attempt to quash dissent. So every time you interrupt, you're merely showing your repressive tendencies. You're not showing anything about your virtue. Okay, let's forget it. So you think this is a victory? Yeah, why are you so frightened of hearing an opinion different from your own? You're pathetic.
Basura!
Another criticism that I have is that when you bring stuff like this to the attention of feminists, they just say that those aren't real feminists, or that that isn't their feminism, and that it's unfair to paint them all with the actions of a few. I would take that seriously if the real ones, or the good ones, would make themselves known when the bad ones or the fake ones are out there using bully tactics. Seriously, if the civil, non-violent feminists counter-demonstrated the psycho-feminists, maybe feminism wouldn't be having the image problem that it does.
Which brings us finally to my statements about egalitarianism. I want to emphasize that I am legitimately confused about a lot of the stances and politics surrounding egalitarianism. And I think that this is a multi-part problem.
I don't know what there is to be confused about. Egalitarianism is just extending equality of opportunity to everybody and not being concerned with equalizing outcome.
In my mind, there are, of course, all kinds of problems that are experienced by all kinds of people throughout the world, and my stance is that feminism is appropriate for addressing a lot of them, and I believe that feminism is appropriate for addressing problems experienced by women and problems experienced by men. And I realize that there are a lot of people who do not believe that. And that is great and fine, and that's how the world works. And the last thing I want to do is to take down a group of people in such a way that it makes it seem like I'm telling them that their beliefs are wrong, or that they are not entitled to them.
In Richard Dawkins' book, The God Delusion, he recounts an experience he had where one scientist had this theory that he had been trying to prove for decades, and this younger scientist came along and disproved it, and the older scientist was overjoyed that he had been proven wrong. It seems to me that feminists see being told that they're wrong as some kind of affront or insult, and the rest of the world just sees it as robust discussion.
And most of all, I don't want to do it in a way where it's not friendly. And, you know, last episode, not friendly. It wasn't friendly. Regardless of my personal politics, Idea Channel is a place to encourage friendly conversation, and there were no shortage of things from last week's video that really transgressed that aim. That doesn't mean that we can't talk about political things, and it doesn't mean that we can't talk about these big, sort of, I don't know, almost incendiary topics, but it means that it's my responsibility to start them in a place that sets the tone, and making fun of people is not a good way to set a tone for a friendly conversation. So that was absolutely my bad.
Well, that is damn decent of you, Mike. I want to see feminism fall into the same disrepute as racism, and I've been working since 2012 to see that happen, and I've been doing it all because I believe that feminists will never yield to mere persuasion, and that they're all knowingly participating in a con job. So there's no point in talking to them. I also believe that feminists have no interest in learning to coexist with the non-feminist world.
I often say, if you're not a feminist, then you're a bigot. I mean, there is nothing in between. It's like being pregnant. You either are pregnant or you're not. What else is there?
I'm a feminist, and if you're not a feminist, then I don't like you, and I don't ever want to associate with you. So I opened up the video kind of harsh by saying that if you're not a feminist, then I don't like you, and I don't want to associate with you, which is still kind of true for me, but let me explain. I believe in the feminism that fights for the equality of all genders. So what I was actually saying is that if you don't believe in gender equality, then I don't like you. And in hindsight, that's what I should have said. But I didn't.
But I want to be proven wrong, Mike. I co-host a weekly hangout on A Voice for Men called The Vanguard Report. On this program, we don't discuss men's rights, but rather feminism's wrongs. And I would like to invite you and one or two of your feminist friends to come on our program and discuss with Fidelbogen, Spinosauruskin, and myself, Nick Redding, coexistence between feminists and non-feminists. What would that look like? How would it be arrived at and maintained? I'll tell you right now, I don't think that it can be. I think that if the feminist political machine isn't stopped and forced back into some corner, it'll plunge the world into an Orwellian nightmare. But again, I want to be proven wrong. How do you, as a feminist, see the aims of feminism being met without the whole world being converted to your ideology? Because from where I'm sitting, feminists seem to think that the only thing standing in their way is people who reject the feminist label. I see a lot of people losing their shit over celebrities and politicians. I see a lot of feminists losing their shit over celebrities and politicians, stating simply that they are not feminists. And I don't see a lot of the chill feminists telling the pissed off feminists to chill. So you can drop me a line at mensrightsedmonton@gmail.com or reach me through the Contact Us section of www.mensrightsedmonton.com.
We will accomplish a lot more if we start these conversations from a place of respect and nuance, and not just, you know, being mad that the other side is wrong when, you know, the other side is not wrong, it's just another side.
Mike, are you saying that it's wrong to believe that someone else's beliefs are wrong? Because that is incredibly self-refuting. But whatever, I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for your time.